From the,
Some good food in there
home
too.
eating place.
Yeah, we had good
Haven't
food,
had it in
I
a
gotta
so.
say that. Until we ran out, so we didn't have a lot of places to like.
These are rescue
All
dogs.
set?
All set?
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order for the East Haddam Planning and Zoning for December 10th, 2019. Could I have the attendance, please?
Barry Brown,
Here.
James Curtin,
Here.
Justin Anderson,
Here.
Marty Gillis.
Here.
Ed Gubbins.
Here.
Richard Pettinelli.
Here.
Louis Telecraft.
Here.
Susan Ginsman.
Here.
And Joe Zane.
Here. Susan and Joe, just because everyone's here, doesn't mean that you can't participate in the whole process. Just, you can't vote because I don't have any openings. Okay. Minutes of our past meeting, which would have been November 26th.
I have one question and one issue under the ZEO report. There's no mention that there was a discussion on why the low bidder wasn't selected, and my notes don't show a vote being taken on that. I'll defer to Ms. Jermaine, as she's the recording secretary, but I think in the future when we have any expenditure of town monies, we should note why we're making an exception to the low bidder and take a vote by roll.
If I remember correctly, I thought we had taken a vote on that, or we had all agreed. But we don't necessarily, since it's in our budget, if I'm not mistaken, we don't have to necessarily vote on it.
Okay.
I think you probably should have noted it was a consensus. of the
Right.
commission.
So,
You know, because the number is there. I mean, so the numbers are listed.
I wasn't here, so why did it go to the guy without the little bit?
We had actually,
I don't know those guys, so.
well, that was just it. We didn't know if it was northeast, it doesn't, but it may be a moot point later on today.
right,
No, there was justification made, but I think it should be noted in the record.
Yeah.
okay. So noted.
I had, under B, the 60 Smith Road thing there, just, all it was, I wasn't at the meeting, but I could see it, the second line under Mr. Ventris, and it said, zoning commission letter to Mr. Travis Went, there should be no S there. The last line, Mr. Ventris requested that a public hearing be scheduled, not to be scheduled. Be scheduled. So strike the two.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, the CEO report, the last paragraph. What I said was that there was no distinction between there would be no distinctions between condominiums and apartments in this case. I don't know if that's clear in here.
That was, no. I didn't, it wasn't clear to me,
Yeah,
you know, and just to say that there wasn't an audio that I was available to
Yeah.
listen to the meeting, so I went off my notes. So how do you want that to read?
Just that that he understands that there's no distinction between condominiums and apartments in this case.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay, I guess we'll accept the minutes as amended. Bills.
I have three, one of them from Hallard and Stage to review our accessory unit and the roll of restrictions, and deed restrictions for $92.50. One from Suburban for supplies for $21.39, and then the second one from Suburban for $70.02.
$21.39, okay.
Yes.
How much was that? 29?
$21.39.
Oh, $21, oh.
Make a motion to pay the bills?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. No acknowledgements, discussion. Regulation review, agricultural regulations.
I'm gonna send this all the way down to Justin. Isabella didn't make it to his place.
Yeah.
See, it's not just you.
I didn't get one either, so.
I got mine, I'm surprised. No way I don't.
Random.
So assuming the highlighted is,
You know, it was kind of the discussion that, you know, the highlight of what we came from last time. And if you went to the second page under proposed, where it says commercial slaughtering facilities, I think this is just a merger of stuff, slaughter of animals other than home use by an owner, because anybody can do that, that's not prohibited. Because we really didn't have a line for it all, the slaughtering of livestock and poultry as an accessory use to a farm is permitted, provided that all stock slaughtered is raised on the farm.
But, just right there while you're there, so you might as well, it should be stock slaughtered or raised on the farm, because stock is plural.
Yep.
So and that's in two places that appears,
Yeah.
that same statement.
correct,
Whatever page that is.
existing wholesale associated.
Just minor stuff.
That's a plural.
Then I noticed we were getting kind of stuck because right now, to refresh everyone, our agriculture regulations is you can do almost anything you want if you're 75, you know, the barn is 75 feet from the property line and the rear line and 100 feet from the road. And when I brought this to the Ag Commission a few years back, it was a discussion about hobby farms and people not having the ability to do it. So what I put on here is a parcel of property that does not contain enough property to set the buildings that house the agricultural animals 100 feet from the property line and 75 feet from the side or rear property line. That just kind of sets it as saying, you know, what is a hobby farm? It's one that can't meet the regular regulations. Trying to define that out. I hope that helps in that thing. And then also there was a whole discussion about pigs and swine and pigsties, and I had copied out, yep, go ahead.
So for this one, the first one, the proposed
one are you on?
hobby farm definition, should we, I'm kinda getting hung up because enough property and distance doesn't necessarily equate. And I think the intent is it has to meet the setback regulations, be it either the agricultural setback regulations or the building setback regulations for the zone.
And so later on, and maybe I can drag it back in both places, I had a recommendation. If you went to the following page where it said permitted uses.
Farm for large body animals,
No, hobby farm, small body animal, permitted in all zones and districts, structures that house said animals are to be 75 feet from the street and 40 from the side and rear yard of the property. That was setting a dimension for hobby. You know, rather than, you know,
Oh, you
having
have to find
somebody
it
with-
somewhere, so, yeah.
So I mean, I can grab that same line and throw that into the section here.
So if this isn't a definition on this page, then why, basically you defined it on two places, is that? the
and you
idea?
defined it differently.
You have to divide it in two places.
But you defined it differently.
They added the
100
thing.
and 75, and then 75 and 40.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, one is what you,
So 175,
Does not contain enough to set the buildings. That's the problem with a hobby farm. A hobby farm can't meet our regulations as they are now.
oh,
So-
okay, so I
so-
understand it, yeah, so you said this is what you can't do, okay.
Right. So if you have less than what's required now, you are categorized into a hobby farm. And then hobby farm's gonna have
Its own requirement.
its own little parameters of what you can and can't do. That was the goal. And some way through this, making a sausage will get there.
So, should we have a setback from the waterfront? Is that something that we would like to administer?
From wetlands, you mean? Any kind of wetlands?
Or, yeah,
What's What does wetlands have to say on that?
Wetlands
Thinking right
reviews
up-
all activity within 100 feet. So,
Well, you do make a distinction in there with open space and non-buildable acreage.
that's just for the intensive farms.
That's just intense.
I was thinking at the Lake
So we
District.
do have to include that with whatever.
Actually, when people come in for a building permit for a structure, we review it. I mean, you also have it as a, you have a setback from all water bodies of 50 feet in the zoning regulations for any structure. I could put a footnote on it in the wetlands where it reviews all activity within 100 feet.
That might
Yeah,
be
why
a
don't we?
smart move.
That would cover. What about existing barns that don't
You
meet
can't touch
this?
them, right?
They don't, if they're pre-existing non-conforming and they're being used for agricultural, they're good to go.
Or even if they're pre-existing, but they haven't been used for agricultural, but may wanna be, but they're pre-existing, so.
Well, and there's where it comes down to, are they really a barn, or is it somebody turns around and builds a garage and it says like, oh, it was always a barn, and that's where you review the file and you make a determination.
Okay.
If the worst case, if they don't like my decision, they can go to the zoning board of appeals.
Correct. Just as long as we're covered.
So in both of these instances, you use small-bodied livestock and poultry, but you leave out large.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of the thing is that,
But we have issues with people that have an acre of land and they have a horse, right?
what typically happens when you have an acre of land and you have a horse, is that, and if they could legally do it, you know, they had a wider lot, they had 200 feet of frontage, they could do it, they can try, and I wanna say 9 out of 10 of them, it's an experiment, it goes away.
Yeah, I've heard
The
this story.
expense get them, the crowding gets them, the odor gets them, and it goes away on its own.
Yeah.
And then I get to sit there and say, I told you it was a nuisance, you know. Most people that come and get involved in the large body animals understand what's going on. And I do a lot more to try to educate them up on the front end of it with stuff from the Extension Center in the state of Connecticut and other states, than the back end. The real problem is, like I said, is that, you know, when people have a smaller lot, even at a 1 acre lot, and all they wanna do is some, you know, as you said, chickens, some rabbits or something like that, and, you know, they get told no.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here is hone that
Yeah.
to those types of situations.
I have a couple of concerns under the permitted uses proposed. Where you talk about farms with large body animals that don't exceed 19 animals. Now, that's a lot of animals. I don't see how you can accommodate that in an R1, 1/2 and R1 zone. Likewise, for the intensive commercial farming operations, you make exceptions for the village district, the C3 district, and I think at least a 1/2 acre and acre zoning, residential zoning should be exempt as well. Likewise, I don't think we should have an exception for, and I raised this point last meeting, for property that abuts deeded open space or physically unsuitable for building purposes. If someone wants to come in and seek a variance when they're seeking their special permit, otherwise I don't see a need for that exemption. I think it's probably more important to protect a buffer with open space. I don't see that we need to have that exception.
The exception of what goes down to 100 feet?
Pardon me?
What, reducing it to 100 feet?
Yeah, I would keep it at 220 feet from the street line or 303 feet from, we're talking about intensive commercial farming operation. This is not hobby farm.
Right.
Correct.
I think.
That makes a difference.
But if it was bordering a open space area and does not have a wetlands review, then nature will take its course and the ground will filter everything out.
Well,
I
I
mean, if
think
you
there's-
know that it's not gonna be used for anything, you know, you don't wanna try and hamster the farmers too much.
Let me ask, can you get variances on these distances from, let's say
You-
you don't qualify, but you have an existing structure that could be used,
Well,
that's
no,
closer?
the existing structures is one thing, if it's been designated for farm, that's it.
But I'm saying, you have the acreage to do it,
Right.
the room to do it, but you have a building that's too close, can you get variances or not?
You can, any dimensional item, you can go for. a
Hardship
variance.
is that the thing's already there and you own it and
Right.
built, right?
But, part of the thought was is that, you know, we have parcels that could be used for agricultural purposes that aren't right now. We are, you know, in our plan of conservation development, we are trying to promote agricultural uses and that alike. And part of it was brought out is that buffering from an existing open space won't ever be built on, so we're not gonna impact a property owner.
No, I understand.
Agricultural uses, you know, in the way of most farming things are part of our scenic and rural character, so basically I based it on the white papers of having a 100-foot buffer of vegetation. If you're asking for a 100-foot buffer, you know, you're not asking for 100 feet separation, you're asking for a buffer.
Building buffer.
You know,
If you got 200 feet, if you have a 200-foot depth, that's 225 feet, you've just given up an acre,
right,
Just on the
Right.
buffer alone.
just on the buffer.
right. You know, and
I mean,
so.
I kinda look at this as a separation, so you don't have nuisance with a neighbor, and by open space, by definition, you're not having a neighbor, it's open space. And if we're concerned about the environment, I mean, nitrogen and dissipation in 100 feet is pretty thorough. I mean, I can build a septic system and get it within 70 feet easy and get a 30-day reduction.
Yeah.
That was, you know, the thought was is if we ever did have for a real application, like the kid that came in with the 10,000 chickens.
Right, Bosford chicken.
And, you know, this town, whether we, you know, wanna look at it or not, used to have about, I don't know what, Jim, six, seven chicken farms at one point, I'd say.
Okay.
In town?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
more than that.
More than that?
Oh, yeah,
More than that.
from when I was a kid.
So
there were
what
a
we,
lot.
you know, there may be a day
Oh, yeah.
where it becomes profitable and someone says they wanna move in. I wanna avoid what some of the heartaches that Lebanon and all that are having. But at the other time, you know, create as few opportunities that if they're available. And that's why, you know, I left it with it, if it being unbuildable due to ledge, wetlands, you know, we can look at the mapping, we have that now. Or if it is dedicated open space, that's why I reduced it to 100, just to some common sense application.
Well, there are some open space parcels that are valuable to the neighborhood for, you know, hiking and those types of activities. And to build a commercial farm right next door to something like that could be really detrimental.
But you're still,
I understand.
Well, it's still a special exception review. You as a commission, under a special exception review, can ask for greater,
but,
under special exception.
it'll still need to meet the setbacks for an intensive farm for the buildings. The question is, can they use that 125 feet we're discussing here to graze or do anything else with their stock?
Right, it might not be for putting, you know, waste or anything on, it might just be for the cows,
Well,
horses, whatever
waste-
grazing.
Waste,
Yeah.
I mean, if they have to do a waste pit, they have to prove that the waste pit is
Right.
is not gonna pollute the downstream property.
Right.
So they're basically making a septic system and doing those nitrogen calculations based upon that.
And you also.
Or it's a
have-
line pit.
You have the ability to require, just like we have in our subdivision, a 100-foot vegetated buffer.
Yeah.
So,
No, I
the
like
good
that.
part about it, a special exception, is it does, you know, if you get that kid that wants to do that chicken farm, we can have him walk in, develop the plans, he's gotta have plans anyways, and go from that point and review it properly. As where before, he came in and said, well, all my buildings are gonna be 75 feet. He did tell us he was only gonna have 1,000 birds total, you know, and then it turned around and, you know,
20,000 or something.
before the, you know, the state got involved, shut him down.
Right.
But we don't really wanna go that route, we wanna set some parameters so that we can talk about it, discuss it.
I do understand we're here for health, safety, and welfare, and,
Correct.
you know, it looks as though a buffer, a decent buffer would satisfy a lot of those needs, but, you know, I keep harking back to the Bosra chicken farm, and, you know, I don't want that to happen in this town.
Right now, it could.
Yeah.
Right now, someone could move in on a plot that's 20 acres and say, I'm putting the building 75 feet up, sign the permit, and I'd have to sign it.
Right.
There's no special exception review, there's no criteria, you know, and then you have to wait till it fails before you do an action because of adverse impacts and everything else. That's what we're trying to avoid.
And while we're writing these regs, I'd like to try to keep that in mind.
Well, I think with special exception review, we get, at this commission,
Yeah, no.
you know, whoever sits on it will be able to make that final decision.
Yeah.
But if you build in that exception, it makes it difficult to then, at the special, at the review period, to say, no, we're changing our mind about that.
Not at all.
No.
No, that's a good thing about special exception.
Nope.
Site plan review is automatic. If they meet all the criteria, you have to approve it. Special exception gives the commission the latitude to look at all the factors. So let's say we find a place that there's a trail that we know gets used every, weekend, and that trail's 20 feet from the edge of the property.
Okay.
Well, guess what? That's a valid discussion point and say, there's already a public use, we're concerned,
Yeah.
back it off.
And whether it's upgradient of open space parcel or downgradient, which way is the water gonna run, all those are issues.
And typically, we usually have a public hearing, the neighbors
Oh,
are
yes,
notified,
exception,
so
yeah.
if there's
So-
concerns, they would.
So in this case, whether it's the Nature Conservancy, the East Haddam Conservation Commission.
Well, we know they would
Land
never
trust.
show up and say anything, so.
The land trust. You know, a walking path might enjoy seeing horses, but not
Dangerous
cows.
animals.
Not
You know,
not tigers.
so, yeah.
Well,
it all
I
comes into
think the
play.
use, that's one of the issues, and that's why we looked at some of the examples, is what is the use in animals? That's a big issue. Is it swine, or, or sheep, or horses, or something? I mean, there's all those different levels of.
The big ones is, the ones that cause the most pain and agony in all the communities that receive lawsuits are the pigsties and the chicken farms.
Of course.
They're just, the intensity is amazing. Even that commercial, barn that has the 400 cows,
Right, lovely.
they actually take all of the hay and all of the droppings and it's in a conveyor belt. There is continually a metal chain running down, scraping it. And that stuff goes and it squeezes it out. They reuse the hay for bedding after it dries out, and they put just the squeezing into a liquefied barrel. The barrel's, basically this monstrous Olympic swimming pool. You want that away from
Yeah, well, I mean,
household.
But we get.
they have 400 acres.
Site plan review.
So,
Right.
a little different.
So are you more comfortable with that now that we've discussed it? Okay.
I just have two typos to bring to your attention. Under the pig, swine, and pigsty, it should be in the highlighted section, it'll be subject to the agricultural buffers required at the D. And also on
Publications.
best management practices, all farms shall utilize, eliminate the D.
And below that is several publications, needs an S on it, and best management practices. While we're changing those regs, though, on the front page of the existing, you've got the residential districts, and you list off 2.9 and 9.2.10. But the wording under resort and under lake district, it's exactly the same as the top two lines, so
They are.
why are we repeating it? Why don't we just include it up there?
When you go through our own.
Yeah, but it implies that there's some difference.
I
and
know.
there
but
isn't.
What happens is when you go through residential districts, 1/2 through R4, there's a list of uses that we have. Then you go to resort and there's a list of uses, these are included. Then you go to lake, there is, but when you go to East Haddam Village District, they're not there. When you go to the CVIG, they're not there. So I relisted where they were in the format that we already have.
And I'll say, when I get a zoning book and I'm going through that much, I'm looking at my sites in R and only R, and I don't have the time to read the entire zone book, so I read my section. So everything is
No,
appropriate
but
for
I'm
the
just
section
saying,
should
list it
be
up
there.
here, and you only have to read that, and you're done.
Yeah, but there's others.
It's the same exact word.
Yeah, I know.
But I would read just that.
Okay, one other minor point to that. Under the Lakes District, you regard it as farm and garden products, whereas you regard it as farm and garden produce under the
Be a typo. Is it again?
residential and resorts.
What page is that?
Right underneath the minutes.
9410,
Yeah, 9/4/10 says products.
is that supposed to be
Up above
produce?
it's produce. Or are the others supposed to be product?
Yeah, I think, I will check the regs. It's one or the other.
Okay.
So
I mean, although I thought I clipped and pasted it, so it might be the same mistake we've been making for 20 years. I will check.
under the definition for hobby farms, 29.3A on page whatever, I don't know. You say, we talked about this, hobby farms are permitted to have up to 4 small body livestock and no more than 20 poultry or rabbits in aggregate. I think that should be adult. Little, you've got 4 or 6 rabbits and they do what rabbits do, now you
Yeah,
have
because you have
26
adult
rabbits.
down under the pigs thing,
Right.
because I was
Yeah.
thinking the same thing, it's like, yeah.
We really wanna just like, oh, no,
Two
sorry, you're
chicken.
number 21. Sorry, Sal, I'll do this one late.
Oh, just great.
Okay, anything else on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second page, I guess. It's proposed pigs, swines, and pigsties.
Yeah.
So, am I clear on this, that if I have a 100-foot setback from the road and 75, that I can have 9 pigs?
No, you have to have that, plus you have to be 300 feet from any house or public meeting area per the
Pigs have the
statutes.
extra one.
So it gets an extra toss in,
Where's the 300? I don't understand.
right up above it. Nor within 300 feet of any inhabited house or public
Oh,
meeting
okay.
house.
Okay, so the next one down, poultry.
Mm-hmm.
If I have the 175, I can have 199 chickens?
Yeah. Yeah, they do now. You're not intensive, you can have 199 chickens.
Yeah.
And I have some people that do it, it's perfectly fine.
Isn't that a little large?
Depends, if you're not really. I had that many one time. Guy gave them to
How
me.
can I argue against you?
Yeah, I know, no, I mean,
But you have
You know,
no
if
one
they-
down there.
Huh?
You have no one near
nobody
you.
down there, and that's the kind of thing that makes the difference. You know, my neighbor next door, we raised in a pheasant pen, 300 pheasants. They're in the pen.
I don't have a problem with the birds, unless there's a rooster involved.
Well, there was 50% of them were, male rooster pheasants, so.
Yeah. They make noise?
Yep. But you know, he owns enough land. It wasn't an intensive commercial operation.
Yeah,
It was for
right.
our own personal use. We didn't sell them to anybody. So I really wanted to kind of leave alone what was in the middle.
Okay.
Let people to keep on moving on.
No, if you're comfortable with those caps, I mean,
Well, are you comfortable with those?
I'm not a farmer, so I really don't know, you know.
Okay.
He sees this all around town, and this is what we're trying to fend against, you know.
Is there a difference between the pigs that people have for pets now and a pig? Or do I need to have a big
Yeah, exactly.
parcel to own a pet pig?
Want to weigh in?
I don't really want to go there.
The pigs live inside, don't they?
I know they do.
But
Look at the look you're making. Yeah,
They
except
also
that-
just had a pig on an airplane because it was also considered, what's the other category?
So just so nobody gets involved in it, if you hear something called a tea kettle pig, it's a scam. because it's still a miniature potbelly pig. And some of these people told me when I saw it, and I was terrified because I thought, for God, my wife was gonna want me to buy her one.
They start out as tea kettles.
They start out at tea kettles, and what happens is that they're able to breed young, like at 9 months. So people show the parents, of course, then the parents get zipped, and they keep on going, and it's a scam because they do get to 250 pounds, and they're big around with short legs, and they're full size. Those, unfortunately, they're going in and out of the house, and that's a pet. That's not, you know.
Well, we're not getting into it.
And I'm not getting into it, no. If the neighbors wanna get it amongst themselves and they wanna take this statute to whatever lengths, God bless them, they can have at it. But I don't, you know, I do have, there's a lot of those pets out there.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
don't
there's a
know,
lot of them,
are we
Yeah.
outlawing a whole bunch of pets? Or are they already outlawed?
Or you can have 10 of them.
You can have 10 of them.
I just had one more question on the 29.2 definitions. That came out of this, under agriculture, that came from the state, right? General statutes?
Yes.
All of that?
Yeah,
Okay, 'cause
Yes.
the way they worded salvaging timber or clearing land of brush, and then it goes, or other debris from a storm, I'm like,
yeah,
well, clearing land of brush isn't storm damage, so
yeah, we adopted it
do
as
we
an
know what they even
ordinance.
mean by that? I mean, you can clear land of brush or you can't, what are these guys, they're talking like debris from a storm or something, I don't get it.
Like when Gloria hit, they got-
Yeah, but you don't get brush from storm damage. I'm just saying, it says clearing land of brush, I'm assuming they mean that you can do that, right?
Well, you can do it as an agricultural entity.
Okay, so
yeah.
that's basically, all right.
Whether you do it mechanically or you send the goats out.
Because the way it was
Yeah.
worded with,
Yeah,
or other
no.
debris left by a storm, I'm like, what?
No, for consistency, we kind of grabbed the statute and put it in the ordinance and then put it in the zoning regs.
Okay.
Okay, so we have some changes to make on it?
Just one more on that?
Yep.
So I can finish this, so small bodied livestock, if I have 100 feet and 75 feet setbacks, I can have 29 small bodied livestock, page 3. For land,
Yeah, that's all.
small bodied livestock, 3/4 of the way down the page.
Yep.
What about it? What are you asking, Brian?
I'm saying,
29 of them on an acre of land.
yeah, I think these numbers are too high.
Where do you see the acre of land versus the,
This is a hobby farm, right?
no. No, a hobby farm right there. A hobby farm is permitted to raise raise small body livestock. Okay, then you go to the next page where it says permitted uses. 4 small bodied livestock and no more than 20 poultry and or rabbits in aggregate. And then that's what you said, put adult. Yeah.
Did I read it wrong?
But farms could have 19.
Well, you're gonna redo this, and then we'll get another look, because it's not
So
an
you
emergency.
see where it says 29.3 permitted uses,
29.
hobby farms?
Fourth page.
Okay. Which letter?
A.
Okay.
A.
The highlighted.
Hobby farms are permitted to have 4. Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd also like, after I clean it, to send it to the agricultural commission for
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah, we'll clean it up, let's, have a look at it, and then we'll send it off to them. Yeah, then we'll send it off to them. Does that sound good to everyone? Yep. Okay. Entertain a motion to, change order of business?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? How about the ZEO report?
Okay, so, first I'll just give you some reading. We got a quarterly newsletter. Should be enough. For now. And the other thing is after we had our meeting, the next morning, I got an email from the company. Good afternoon, Jim. Sorry about the delay. Mike was out, and they came back with another estimate for the, and this company is ARC, and the estimate was for $1,310.40, which is a lot less than what we had. Rich did bring a copy, which he has to bring back to work with him, of the work that they did. It's clear, concise. He recommends we just get one copy run off for proofreading, but it's, what, $500 less than the other one?
Wow. These are also things they've done. They do our,
You know?
so they tend to do our dividers and small things. We have had issues with them on, some of the bigger format stuff. Some of the color coming out was not appropriate. But the small stuff, I got an okay, and the marketing department that deals with them mostly, you know, we're not producing this stuff for technical specifications. The marketing department that does deal with them just recommended that we have a test run done. Make sure the colors are correct, because we do have colors in this one. You know, check it for accuracy, but they did give them, you know, good report on, it comes in order, it's bound nicely. The small format stuff they're pretty good with. Again, some of the large format stuff we're not interested in, that we've had a couple issues with.
Just to clarify, this is for the POCD printing?
Yeah.
Yes.
How many pages did it come out to again?
So, 100
100?
pages.
Okay.
Doesn't look bad.
No.
What's the name of the printing company?
What else you have?
ARC.
What else you have?
Other than, it did snow last week, and yes, I did go out and find people that decided to move in for the winter, so you may hear some yelling and screaming, but it is what it is. You know, when you're in a house that's on 0.1 acre, or you bought it and it clearly said in all the information, seasonal use only, it is what it is, so that's what I get paid to do.
Drive around.
Drive around and go hunting, you know. Tracking, yeah. And the big part about it is, just since it is part of the public record, is that they're in buildings in most cases don't have adequate septic, but more importantly, don't have adequate heating units, the smoke detectors and all that stuff, and someone says, well, how can you be so mean? And I say, well, if I don't do my job and then I find out that the place burnt down to the ground because they were renting it out to somebody, or somebody decided to move in there and it was inadequate, they're not sleeping with that either, so. And if they're living in there and they own it, they have an asset. So the reality is sell the asset, move on.
You have, 3 of them, right?
Just 3 now, and I'm researching others this week.
Right.
More snow coming.
More snow coming. It makes my life a lot easier.
Just, I wasn't here last meeting, so just to backtrack, did we put in the accessory use subject to deed restrictions? Is that in there now? Because there was some question, there are some deed restrictions that
What we,
do not permit developments or subdivisions to have.
what we talked about and I was gonna do internally is change all of our application forms for the
Okay,
applicant
all right.
to say, are you aware of, have you researched if there are any deed restrictions to propose,
Now I remember.
you know, that
And then we're
prevents
gonna
you
walk
from
away
doing
from
the
it.
Yeah.
activity
It's not
proposed.
us.
To be a
That would
checklist.
cover anything.
Yeah.
So,
Can I have that back, please?
To be a checklist, Lou, so.
So what does the commission feel? Do you wanna go with this?
Yeah,
Is that okay with everyone?
we get a
Does it look
second
good?
bite at the apple. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a question on, for Jim, on Lakeside Dam. What's the issue with the water? Where are we with that?
so I had a meeting 2 weeks ago with Dan and his partner.
No sending it to Fuss.
And they kind of got a little amazed about the cost of it. And so
What's the subject here?
There's lakeside dance across the
Oh,
pipe.
okay.
Water.
Yeah.
So I said, well, your biggest cost is obviously is the pipe going across the road. And he claims, and I said, well, he's gonna give you a couple weeks to clear it, because he then admitted to me, well, you are right, I did block it off.
That we kinda know.
And it did work for 30 years without me blocking it off.
Mhm.
And the other quote was, and you're all right, the water flows downhill, no kidding. It was a very painful meeting, you know, with him, and his partner, who really wants to get out of this altogether, just shaking his head, said, unplug it, create a shallow swale, stone it, let's see if it can work the way it did. If it doesn't, you're still gonna be liable for it, because it was a corrective work order. So,
So how do we judge if it works correctly?
I'll wait till the first big storm and go out and take a peek.
So how do we judge what the big storm?
Well, it's not working right now, cause I just was there. and
Oh, it's not working, it's not unplugged now, no. No,
I mean, if we get a 25-year storm, it's gonna fail.
I don't think it will in a 25-year storm.
Well, then we're all
Well, there's
set.
been a lot of
But
storms.
if it does
It's
fail,
been
Yeah,
in
if it does
25,
fail, yeah.
it doesn't mean it's, you know,
Right.
our subdivision design is 10-year.
Yeah, no, if it fails, it fails. If it don't, it don't. So we'll see. But I said, do not put any gravel in the roadway. That's gonna impede you until you've, had some, clearance on it.
There
So,
were no issues years ago, so it's been functioning for.
no, he climbed it. He climbed it, and, that was his doing.
Made to fail.
I was just wondering where we're at with
Yeah,
it.
I just went up there last, I think it was Thursday was Thanksgiving, so it was Tuesday.
Didn't you say the town had pipe they were gonna give him? 12-inch
Yeah,
pipe?
he didn't want any part of that, neither the other guy. The moving around 4-foot pieces of concrete when you can buy a
Oh, plastic.
full length, 25, 20, what do they come in, 20-foot rolls?
20-foot.
20-footers.
Sticks.
One person can pick it versus a machine.
True, but it's better than nothing.
Throw it in and
Yeah.
there you go.
So we'll see where he goes with it. He's still under a corrective work order for wetlands, so I have that hook.
Okay. Entertain a motion to take a 5-minute recess?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, call the meeting, oops, sorry.
Yeah, too many buttons.
Yep. Thought we had to get rid of, we could get rid of that, no?
No,
Okay.
this is my safety valve, and I like my safety valve.
Don't even get a copy of it, though.
No,
Not-
because the safety
not
valve
this last
decided
one.
to fail on us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I rely on the audio for clarification on a lot of things.
Put some.
Otherwise I go on my notes.
I know Torrance down at the
15-year
gateway has his
installer.
own little recorder, puts it down and away he goes.
Yeah.
Our meeting.
Okay, seeing it's 8 o'clock, we'll, have the public hearing portion of our meeting. The East Center Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on, Tuesday, December 10th, 2019, at 8 PM at the Municipal Office Complex, room number 1 and 2, 1 Plains Road, Ludus, to hear the following. New application number 19-13, Little Village Preschool, 20 Plains Road, special exception review for a change of use from church to a preschool facility. Assessors map 65 lot 172. At this
76.
hearing-
176.
I'm sorry, 76, 176. At this hearing, interested persons shall be heard and correspondence received. Okay? I'm gonna read off both.
That's not easy.
Well, this
Well, that's
is
why you have
the-
two eyes. Put
Right.
one eye on each one. Once again,
I'm used to you not being here.
Okay.
Hi.
You have your green cards?
I do.
We need to get started. Thank you. Can you write to Jim, please?
Okay. Do you want the receipts
Yeah.
as well? Okay, there you go.
Just introduce yourself so we all know.
Sure, my name is Natalie Thayer, and I'm the owner of Little Village Preschool. Right now I'm at 14 Plains Road, across the street, and I purchased the church, and I would like to move my facility over to there.
Okay, Jim, what-
Currently-
I'm sorry.
It's okay, I'm currently licensed for 30 kids, and I would be looking to be licensed for 50 kids, so to grow my enrollment capacity, and include an infant toddler program as well.
Is that both lots that go with that?
Yes.
It is? Okay.
Sure, can I grab one of these?
Jim, is there a CO they have to obtain to open that? Or how do you get to make
So-
sure that's
So right
up to
now, there
specs?
is building permits that have been issued to remodel it, and the building official and the fire marshal will do a final walkthrough when everything is
This is the
finalized
Okay.
for it. It had to be converted to be handicap accessible and all the ADA things that go with a public building, so that is being done as we speak.
Just curious.
And the first letter I passed out to you was the Christmas gifts of all Christmas gifts. Because in our record, there was no record at all that this was a public water system in the past. Great coordination between the state of Connecticut. Now I'm not, because we are the water provider. We get all transmittals for anything that happens in East Haddam. It's much, much nicer because it gives me a heads up to talk to people when they have issues. But this has a subject water system, Moodus United Methodist Church, 20 Plains Road, has a non-transient, non-community water system. Yours is there. The Department of Public Drinking Water section is a receipt of the public water system screening form for Little Village Preschool as defined in section 1913 B102A 65. A public water system that serves at least 25 people for at least 60 days out of the year, makes water available for domestic use to its consumers. The water system at this trust was previously regulated as a public water system and reflected in the submittal application dated November 19, 2019. The subject water system will be reactivated. This office understands you will be moving from 9 Plains Road, currently regulated, to your new location. Please keep this office advised of any changes to your proposed moving date of February 1st, 2019, so we can deactivate and reactivate in a timely fashion. In addition, this office recommends you obtain a base water test, total coliform bacteria, and sanitary chemicals prior to moving into your new location. Please also return the request contact information forms. The forms will be emailed to you and your certified operator earlier today. You can also update the name of the water system on this form. You will be receiving a water system responsibilities letter outlining the requirements of owning and operating a non-transient, non-community public water system in the near future. And it is signed Vicky Carrier, Special Engineer of the Drinking Water System. She also had called my office and Jim Karenberg at the Chatham Health District, and we provided her with the easements on this property for the use of the well that have been in place for decades, and all of the other wonderful information. So that was the one that I thought for sure was going to be an absolute nightmare of a hurdle, and we're done.
That's all.
In this letter, it says 9 Plains Road, is that?
That, I did correct that on the update form.
Okay.
Yeah, for some reason they had 9 Plains Road. I did clarify that that's 14 Plains Road.
Okay, what other correspondence?
So I also have another correspondence dated December 4th, 2019 from the Chatham Health District, conversion of 20 Plains Road to a licensed daycare center. Dear Commission members, the conversion of this building previously used as a church requires compliance with the current public health code regulations in regard to the well water system and septic system. The building and health file was reviewed for this application as well as an easement agreement and a letter from the Department of Health dated December 3rd, 2019. In 2011, a full septic system repair was completed for the United Methodist Church. A new septic tank, pump changer, and leaching field was installed. The installed septic system is capable of accommodating 510 gallons per day. Based on the 2018 technical standards of the state of Connecticut, the current septic system can accommodate 51 total children for a daycare center based on the daily pupil rate of 10 gallons per day. The drilled well served 20 Plains Road is located next door at 22 Plains Road. There is an easement on file from 1979 that allows continued use of the well by the building located on 20 Plains Road. The well was previously regulated by the state of Connecticut Department of Health Drinking Water section and is, as of December 3rd, 2019, can be reactivated by the applicant. Letter dated December 3rd, signed by Vicky Carrier, professional engineer. Based on the information from the Chatham Health District is issuing a conditional approval of the conversion pending the following. 1, a pump out report on the septic tank be submitted as required for the B100 application. 2, a report that confirms the pump system is in good working order and operational. 3, a basic water test be submitted to the Department of Health and the Chatham Health District to show that the water is potable. And 4, confirmation from Department of Health that the system has been officially reactivated. And sincerely, Elizabeth Davidson, Secretary of the Chatham Health District.
I have a question on the well serving 2 properties. Are the 2 properties owned by the same person?
Say that again?
Are the 2 properties owned by the same person?
No.
I think the well's just,
The well's on 22.
Right.
Next door.
Yeah, but there is an easement in place.
but they don't,
But they have an easement.
yeah.
Do they use that well, or is it just there?
There's, the lines are connected from both the church, or the former church, and the apartment building next door, which used to be the Luda Savings Bank, to that well. And when Bob Stack sold the building, he bought it from Luda Savings, and then he got it as Stack Realty. When he sold it out, he had an easement written for co-use, which is village areas, not uncommon. Because the drilled well was better than the hand dug well.
Is that still on site, I wonder?
The hand dug?
Yeah. There are a
Haven't
few in
seen it.
Ludas.
Yeah, I know. You know, if it would be anywhere, it'd be out back in the wetlands. And that'd be prior to the installation of the septic system when there was an outhouse. You know that was there.
Have you received your permit for 50 children? Has that been
I have
approved?
not yet, because what will have to happen is the church will need to be renovated, and I'll have to get final approval from the building department, the local health department, and local fire marshal. And at that time, when I have those, I can submit the application to the state for a change of address. And then they'll come out for the inspection, and, you know, there are other things they'll need to see. They'll need to see all the water tests.
So we need the condition, that would be a condition, if this is approved, can we condition that, or?
I
mean, it's just a road-
condition that all necessary
Yeah,
approvals from the
okay.
state of Connecticut and Health District be the building department. Yeah.
Are you planning any modification to the drive access or anything? You've got 30 kids now, asking for 50, and it looks like a relatively compact area for a use that sees a high influx at 7 o'clock and a high influx at 5:30.
No, I mean, currently, it looks like, that we have 5 spaces, which in our current space, we have 3 spaces that, and we can fit 3 cars reasonably. But no, we weren't planning to modify the parking area at all. One of the benefits, when we open in the morning, the library is not open, so I would assume that some of that overflow parking might happen in the library parking lot. In the afternoon, we don't generally have a lot of people pulling in at the same time for pickup because our pickup times are staggered. But I wasn't planning to modify the parking area in the front, other than to repave in the spring and draw the lines for the parking spots.
one of the benefits, this is the front section is a circular drive. You drive in and drive out.
It's a loop.
Drives and loops around, there's a little bit of an
So is there
island,
an easement on that? Or a prescriptive easement on that?
prescriptive easement, it's been in use.
Prescriptive
It's been
easement
that way
carry
for-
past the purchase?
Forever. Yeah, what I was gonna ask is, where was the church? I mean, obviously, I don't know how many people were in the church, but where were they parking?
A lot of times across the street.
Yeah.
So that-
So I
that-
mean, if a church service could get in there.
That's kind of what worries me, is, you know, if you park across the street as an adult, it's fine,
And,
but your use, you know, you got a toddler and I'm bringing in the second child and a toddler and I'm crossing Main Street or Plains Road, it's not a good idea.
No, that's not the intent here. I mean, between what exists there, and actually this application, the discussion's been with us for about 2 months, and I've been kind of watching the cadence, because you cross the street, you don't have to go far. I really have never noticed a jam to say, and the only thing that's different, which is probably better right now, is that the bus stop now will be in front of this building
Right.
instead of this building, which was at the crest of the hill.
Which is a nightmare currently, so, yeah.
And even the existing daycare center, that driveway is like a trap in there, and people have to then turn around. It's a hassle to get in and out of there with more than, let's say, 3 or 4 people. I mean, it's.
Are you saying that some of your children come by bus?
Yes, because we would be serving before and after school kids as well, so the kids get picked up in the morning by the bus and dropped off in the afternoon by the bus.
Are you planning on fencing the rear yard?
We are, yeah. Yeah, it would be where the
I
children.
noticed
play
the
would be
old,
completely enclosed.
the old property was fenced.
Yep. Yeah, the old, yes, oh. do
It
you mean
looks
the-
like
where I'm
it
at
is.
now?
So wait, the daycare's here or here?
So the church did not have it, there was not a
That's a
fenced in
motion
yard, so
barn.
we've added the fencing.
This is the fenced-in
Yeah,
area
yeah,
where the kids
to enclose that yard completely.
But there's not a lot of room to get in and out of there. They were driving around the library too.
Well, that's fine.
Any other questions?
If they're driving around the library, do they need?
Rich, what do you got a
I'm
separate
sorry,
conversation going on
I'm thinking
here.
to myself.
Tony can't
So if
have everything.
if they are using the library, and I agree, that's not a bad use, but does the town need to be protected? Do we need to get, or give them an easement?
No.
Really?
It's town property, if somebody wants to go and drive on this driveway and park, you know,
To service a private,
Town, taxpayers.
I mean, you're not staying there.
Yep.
They're not staying there.
Right.
So whether
doesn't
they're
Goodspeed have an agreement with us to use the parking lot from the old town hall?
completely different.
Can you write something?
You
in
serving alcohol at that daycare?
Sometimes I wish, but no.
Strike that.
If I had about 4 o'clock every day, it'd be really nice, but no.
Okay, I'm just asking, I mean, you know.
Can we stipulate something like in their insurance policy that they hold the town harmless for any, almost like adding the town, like when I had the kayaks down there, I had to name the state of Connecticut as
Additional
An
insurance.
additional
protected,
insured.
right? And that way they'd be covered if somebody got hurt on town property, it would be covered in their insurance.
Yeah, I can't imagine why not. I do it when I have anything off-site that I have to name somebody as an additional
Would that-
insured for the, you know.
Would that put liability on us if somebody picks their kid up, then goes into the library and falls down? What building were they last in? Who can they sue?
I'm thinking that, you know, even when the church was in operation, because that's where they park, because nobody was there. It was
Well, there's
Sunday
no room
morning,
for a
it was
church
library.
service there, that's for
You
sure.
know, we have that same situation going down at St. Stephen's when, you know, you have the church there and, you know, Saturday and Friday and all that, other people use it, it's. Sometimes you get more trouble sweating
Why don't
the
we
details.
put the selectmen on the spot and ask them?
I'm waiting for the public portion.
Well, actually, I'll open it to the public then.
So, hello.
Hi, how are you?
So, short answer is, I don't know. Because, though we have nothing in place because your daycare has been using the library property, there's a pass-through between the two properties for years, and going back to when my children went there, I'd kick them out and as I was driving around, so, you know, that's how most people do it, they go in, then out through the library, in the existing structure, and this would be very similar, I think, especially early in the morning before the library is open. Liability-wise, see how there's any more liability, because there's people that right now that turn around in there and drive through there all the time, so, there's potentially more liability with the sidewalk issue and everything, the way it runs through there, but again, that's not my purview at this point. But I would make a comment on that, I think saving this iconic wooden structure is fantastic, and the refurbishing and adaptive reuse, I think is fantastic also, so. I was so pleased to see that's what was happening to it and the work that has been put into it, so. Definitely encourage that, while it meets all requirements, that it be approved as a daycare.
And we could always, as with any business, especially when you're working with children, you always have to adapt. And so we could always, work something out with my parents so that if I notice we're having a gum up with traffic, we could change drop-off and pickup procedures so that rather than parents parking, we could have children ready and available for them. So essentially, we can open their door, give them a clipboard, they can sign their child out and be on their way. So, we could certainly adapt drop-off and pickup procedures so that we can, make sure it's safe, because that's obviously the number one thing, is that kids are safe, people are safe. So that could be done if we notice that we're having a problem with parking and the flow and all of those things.
I guess my question is, you've already been using the Rathburn Library as it is, so there is no change, you're just going from one side to the other.
Right.
Nothing's changed.
Except that they're coming before us for something else, and we understand that now they've been using it.
Yeah, we have knowledge of it.
We have knowledge of it at
And
this
they're
point.
looking to up to 50, so. Where it's not a problem with 3 to 5 cars with 30, I'm happy to hear you can adopt or adapt, but 50 is another.
But they're also going to spread their time out for longer venues, so it's spread out over more time. You're not just doing the little preschool, and after school hours and all that. I don't know.
I just thought, it's something we should ask, so.
Can you describe the length of the drop-off and pickup time table?
Well, we open at 6:30, so we have some, we usually have 5 or 6 kids dropped off right at 6:30. And then, we have kids who come in at 7, and they kind of stagger. The bus gets there at 8:05, so really every 5 minutes, a child could really essentially be walking through the door.
Until when?
And then in the afternoon, we have one pickup time at 12:30.
When does that end in the morning?
So our first session ends at 12:30, we have another session ends
No,
at
I mean the drop-off part. It starts at
afternoon.
6:30.
When does it start?
6:30 a.m.,
And then it ends,
6 p.m.
no, I mean
No,
the
the drop-off.
drop-off period.
Whenever you need them now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it
When the
depends.
parents gotta
Yeah,
drop
I
the
would
kid off,
say-
it's when the
I would
parent
say
shows
9.
up.
I mean, we have,
Up till 9
school
o'clock.
starts at 9,
Yeah,
preschool
okay.
starts at 9,
Yeah,
so
but
really the bulk
also,
is.
I can't, like, if a parent shows up at 9:05, you can't show up today, you know? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
right, exactly.
It's, you
And
know,
that is
they open
true.
at 6:30 as parents drop kids off. Some parents roll in late,
Yeah.
some are
I have
early.
a few kids
I
who
got
come
kids in
in
daycare,
at-
that's why it's not a set time from this time to this time, and if you don't make it, you can't come to daycare.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Not
I'm
a-
just- I just want to know when the
For
traffic.
reference.
I would say the heaviest traffic we see is in the morning between, I would say between 7 and 8:30. That's really the heaviest traffic time. In the afternoon, it's much more staggered. The kids get off the bus at 3:30, and anytime between 3:30 and 6, or when kids
So
are.
it's more staggered in the afternoon.
It is,
Okay.
it is. We don't see a lot of traffic in the afternoon at the same exact time. Whereas, in the morning when school starts at 9 a.m., there might be 5 or 6 cars that are dropping children
I
off.
don't think there's ever more than 4 or 5 cars at a given moment, though, I mean, that I've seen.
I mean, right now we have staff that park in the 3 spots, and it's, and
You
we do
don't,
have.
you don't see going from 30 to 50 being,
No, I mean, I may definitely have to think about adapting the drop-off, because, I mean, there are more kids, it's.
Yeah.
But some of them may be in the same car, like siblings, and so 50 doesn't necessarily translate into 50 customers driving in and out daily.
Exactly.
So,
At the same time.
at the same exact time, correct, yeah.
very good.
So how about if I have this, if we could ask the selectmen to run it by the town attorney, if they think there's something additional, they can work it out with the owners of the daycare.
That's what I was thinking, because it does fall on the selectmen, not us. because it is town property. Well, I mean, we are, governed for.
We'd still be able to vote on that tonight, right?
Yes, if we so desire, with a stipulation that they have to hear from the
One
selectmen.
person in the public there. What's up?
Yes, sir.
I was going to comment that the parking area, and I believe it's Little Noises up on W.F. Palmer Road, is not very large either. And you have a fairly large attendance here, so.
Correct.
And people are in and out, so it's, what do you think? Jim, do you have any idea how many spots are there? 6 or 8 total?
That's all.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. If 6?
Yeah, it's relatively small.
Yeah.
Do we define a daycare for parking requirements?
Yeah, I mean, it meets that too.
Okay. Well, it meets
Because
the
it's in-
requirements, it
it's
meets the
in-
requirements,
yeah.
we're kinda done.
So just one last thing, is there any kind of a lighting plan here? Outdoor
For
lighting?
the outdoor lighting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have, it'll be completely lit on the outdoor, the walkways, the parking area.
ADA requirements.
I think that's all
requires
part of
it.
the ADA requirement.
Oh, it is.
You don't have a drawing of that, do you?
With the lighting,
Yes.
I don't.
But,
but we won't get approved otherwise.
and
Correct.
the building code requires it to be downsplash now, so all
Our farthest point at one of the sidewalks needs 1 candle foot, and Bill told me that just last week, 1 candle foot of light to illuminate the back, so.
Well, that was
Myself
in
and the
emergency
electrician are
exit,
aware.
yeah. It's,
Yeah.
but there will be lights because there's an entrance in the back that would be used for the infants and toddlers. That would obviously need to be well lit, when it's dark.
Any
and
signage?
same in the front. The signage, I plan to leave what's currently there and just take off their panel and put my own panel in. So I wasn't planning to change that
Okay.
signage at all.
So lighting and signage, we can condition that it still has to be approved through the Jim's office.
Yeah, so when you
'Cause-
get it put together, come to me, and then I can
Okay.
give it to Bill, and we can.
Because we need to make sure that you're doing everything that we would want,
Okay,
downsplash and stuff.
sure.
Just out of curiosity, is there, once it's up and running, is there an employee parking plan?
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking now, like currently that we use the spots that are in our parking area, but we could modify that and we could park in different places. Not exactly sure where, but
Just-
we have our spot.
There might be room at the rear of the building, it looks like, where you could
Well,
pull in
yeah,
a
that's
few.
what,
no?
like, right during the renovation, when I'm checking in the afternoon, I'm able to get my vehicle completely off of the pavement for the library. So, I mean, that could be an option. I don't know that I'd wanna do that just because of its proximity to the playground in case somebody ever hit their accelerator versus, instead of their brake, but that could certainly be done for staff,
I mean,
yeah.
an option. But you'd mainly be parking up front, correct?
Yeah, that would be the plan.
You don't have access to the back of the property, do you? Through the road, you have to go over the town property.
Well, the lines are a little skewered there, so they're not
Okay.
exactly, yeah, don't go, you see how it goes through the building too? So
Yeah,
the
I noticed
lines are-
that, I was, but,
Yeah, that must not be right.
Yeah, well, it's great for visual, but it's not
Okay.
exact, yeah.
how many acres is this? Is it, do you know right off?
Question.
Maybe around 0.6 total.
0.6,
2 little
okay.
lots, somewhere in that.
Separate lots over there, or?
It's, it was purchased after, they never merged it, the church never merged it. I
So
don't know why.
you're buying both parcels?
Yeah.
That's Ken Walls one, yeah.
Yeah.
So what else we have? Insurance with the selectmen and the lighting approved by their office. and
Lighting,
what else? Signage.
Yeah. Excuse me, change it.
Line
Okay.
and signage, are those the only two things that I heard? Line and signage?
Well, you just need a permit for signage, so it has to go through Jim's office anyway.
Right.
And are we conditioning the selectmen investigate?
Oh, yeah. Okay, any more information from that commission, Mike? Questions?
Would the town office space be available for, shared parking? Yeah.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking, I mean,
Our
staff
regulation
could.
says if there's any public area within 500 feet.
It's
yes,
500
it is.
feet, that's what my next question was, is that distance, yeah, okay.
You'll notice there's a lot of empty spaces most days.
Yeah, that's what.
Except for election.
Is it 500 feet?
Yep. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, also across the street, that's
Yeah.
state property.
Directly across?
Yeah, where all those cars parked, that's state property.
Huh, okay. Okay, yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, State.
State,
Part of the state.
State. The state actually wanted to sign it over to the town, am I correct?
Yeah, we said no until they fix the drainage.
Right,
and then
and now we're waiting on that. We wanted to move all that parking to the rear of the buildings and make it look a lot nicer.
we wanted them to connect.
Should I bring that up at a meeting?
Perfect.
I'd have the selectmen work on it?
About 4 years.
Yeah, that was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Hold that paperwork for me, would you please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I got it.
I'd like to eliminate that road and.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing.
That was the whole,
The,
the whole.
green
Yeah,
area.
yeah, and then you get put on, yes, just to clean it up and it would be great for you.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
absolutely.
beautiful street.
Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was my neighborhood growing up.
Let's push that forward.
What's that?
Let's push that forward.
Okay. Questions, comments from the commission?
No.
Good, everyone good? Okay, I guess I'd entertain a motion to close public hearing. So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any discussion?
I'll make a motion, we approve, application 19-13, the Little Village Preschool, 20 Plains Road, special exception review for a change of use from church to preschool facility, assessors map 65, lot 176, with the following conditions: that the use of the library driveway be arranged with the selectman's office, and that the lighting and signage be approved by the land use administrator's office.
Then
Which else? Anything on that?
And the Chatham Health.
Oh, and the Chatham Health conditions be adhered to.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good luck.
Thank you so much. I
Congratulations.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Jim?
That's all I have.
Anyone else have anything?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hang on.
So our next meeting is Eversource?
Eversource?
Yeah. Is that coming up?
That's the 28th.
There's, Banner,
What's the next meeting? Banner.
14th.
So I wanted to ask you
January.
about that easement on Roaring Brook, why do they need to go in there? Why, how come they can't come off the Florida Road and go down?
The Florida Road is a stream.
There's two streams that block
Yeah,
it.
the stream on one side, stream on Florida Road
What,
side.
little ones, you mean, or something?
The smaller one on Florida Road, yeah, but it is an
But there is a
actual-
little stream there.
Yeah, there is, if you go down Florida Road, there's actually a pond that's so underutilized. It
Hey,
is
Keep that a secret.
It's huge. Isn't that that big pond all the way down?
No, there's a little pond, you go Florida Road from the
Yeah.
house, and you just get over the crest and look at the right inside, there's this farm pond. It's like 200 feet long, maybe it's
Yeah.
50
Oh,
feet
yeah,
wide.
right off the road there.
Just loaded with fish. I never had a chance to
Well,
go
nobody
in
could
it.
get to it, see how
Yeah.
overgrown it is, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta just park. when
But
you
they
get
can't
to the
go
pond.
beyond and get to their easement and track it that way?
They'd rather not, because the other one had Farm Road on it that they always use, so that's why.
Okay, seeing there's nothing else, I guess I would entertain a motion to,
Adjourn.
do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry
Happy New Year.
What's our next meeting, January 14th?
14. Good time to take off.
Yeah.